Hey there, Dango Stu here. Today's video is about installing the Morse cables, doing some more electrics, and is proudly sponsored by marineengine.com. In an hour or so, a mate of mine, Leon, is coming again to help with the electrics. Huge thanks to Leon, as always. So while I'm waiting for him, I'm just going to get going with the Morse cables. Now, last time you saw this, we took the throttle cable apart. Get some rubbish out of the way. I need to find some way of storing charts on this boat. I am going to remake the console that was up here. There used to be a console that had a radio and stuff in it. I'm not going to put anything up high like that other than the Raymarine now. I'm going to make it just completely for storage. I'm actually looking at one of the radios that goes under the dash, and then it's just got the handpiece that you sort of have on the wall on a hook sort of thing. That's what I'm going for radio wise. Anyway, I don't know if it's going to be big enough to store charts. I don't think so, so we'll go with something else. I've actually got a PVC pipe that I put ends on that I use for just keeping charts in. Works pretty well, but trouble is, of course, they curl up, which makes them a little bit hard to use when you get them out. Anyway, getting distracted. All right, now what we need is our two shiny new Morse cables. All right, so 225 is the longer one, 221 is the shorter one. Makes sense, not sure what the measurement units are or if it's just a part number. Let's feed them down and up through the dash. All right, control cables went through that opening in the bulkhead there, came along these clips from memory, and then up. So let's follow that same route. I was speaking to Damien from Brewpeg last night, and he was doing his control cables too. It amazes me the number of times we end up doing the same job at the same time. Alright, up and through. At least we can work up here and then lower the whole unit back in when we're done. With units like this, you don't have any trouble figuring out which is the throttle and which is the gear selector, because you give it a click, it's given it a bit of throttle and selected a gear. Then so you can see from then on, this is throttle. So obviously this is throttle and that's gear. Alright, let's wind the throttle end back on. So, what we need now is one of these saddles that holds the outer casing. The idea with these cables is simply that the outer casing gets locked off and the inner part slides. That's your relative motion. If you didn't have this locked off, the whole cable would just move and nothing would happen. So it's really important that the cable's locked off securely. From memory, I cut one of the bolts because it was a really long, inappropriate bolt and was bent. So we may need to run down the shop. But it's one of the advantages of starting jobs like this. You go, oh yeah, missing one bolt. I'm heading off island tomorrow anyway. So now's a good time to figure out what I'm missing. Then here you can see, slide in and out. Pop that on, no big deal. Alright, now we need one of these little C-clips, or E-clips I think they're actually called. And then I'll just get some pliers to crimp it on. Just going to use a set of bullnose pliers, and because they got the little grooves along them, stops the clip shooting out. Famous last words, but there we go. That's really how easy it is. Saddle, two clips, slop on, clip to stop this popping off again. Alright, that's throttle. Let's do gear selector. Then goes up through here And it looks like all we've got is a hole for a split pin to stop that one coming apart. So let me go find a split pin. Kits like this are so handy. You know, they last forever because you just don't use that many of them. But when you need them, they're just awesome to have. There we go, beautiful. You know, a kit like this, they're stainless, so they're good for the boat. And, you know, they probably cost less than one trip up to the shops actually costs. By the time you take into account fuel, time, all that kind of thing. Ideally that would have a little washer under it too. Doesn't seem to be one in the kit. As in, one didn't come out. But I would like to find one. Although I've got to say, there's no room for it. Alright. Let's forget that. At least it preempts all those comments. You should have used a washer. Rick and Rob just stopped by to say good day. Poor old Rick still got his neck brace on after he broke his neck. Okay, where are we? Alright, another saddle for here. What I actually need here is a second bolt. So I think this bolt was the one that was there, and there was obviously the longer one that I cut. Alright, gotta go meet Leon now, but alright, last thing is our cover. So we can get one screw in, and then we can always get the other one in later. That's fine. There we go. And then some wood screws holding it down. If this was a fine restoration, I would have had this re-chromed and all that kind of thing, but you know how it is. Where do you stop? There's got to be a limit somewhere. Now, this is the little ball that threads on top, but it's pretty uninspiring, so I did lash out a little bit. There was a hot rod shop in the US that sells gear knobs, so I got myself a bling one. Check that out. Much bigger thread on the back, but when you order from them, they give you adapters for smaller threads. Much better. All right, the main reason I wanted to do that now is just to clean the dash up a bit, because Leon and I will be installing some pressure gauges and stuff, so the cleaner this area it is, the better. Something I just noticed, oh, and I was going to mention, when I was removing the impeller with screwdrivers, lots of people yelled at me. One guy even accused me of being a fraud. Not quite sure what that means, but anyway. So I did buy one of these impeller removal tools, which I will keep with a spare impeller kit, etc. And the good thing about this, actually, it'll be easier to get the impeller out with the pump in situ, plus you don't risk dinging the casing. So, worth having, I guess. Now, another thing with this throttle is it actually hits the dash before it gets to full throttle. And this is only exacerbated by having the gear knob on, particularly a larger one. Now, I've got to say, I didn't notice it driving up the coast, which makes me think that the Detroit itself's at wide open throttle before the Morse cable's at its full extension. So I think that's why you don't notice. I think I would have noticed if it had, you know, kept going and hit the dash. So I'm thinking it actually stops before there, but we'll see. If it is a problem, particularly with the new gear knob one, lifting it up slightly on some sort of mantle will pretty much solve that problem, but once I've got it hooked up, we'll see how much movement there is into the throttle and whether it's an issue or not, but just something I noticed. Alright, going to jump in Red Dwarf and go grab Leon. Leon's back. Hello, Leon.
Good timing.
Yeah. And what we're going to do, we're going to run a new, this is actually just some trailer wire. I ran a multi-core wire up here to do the dash stuff, and it doesn't quite reach. I was going to do a terminal block behind here, but it'll probably mean doing a whole lot of really short connections up to here, which is not good. For example, here's our oil pressure gauge, comes with this much wire. So what I want to do is mount a terminal block just under here that goes to the engine bay, and this is where all my switches, gauges, whatever, can have their junction point here. Nice and easy to get to, and it's not going to involve extending wires another 20 centimeters. So that's job one. Got a longer cable run through to the dash now, so just stripping these wires, going to go to a terminal block. Can't find my little packet of ferrules or whatever they're called.
Bootlace connectors.
Bootlace connectors, thanks Leon, that'll do, it's close enough. While I do this, Leon's in the lazarette just pairing his phone to the new MPPT charge controller, it's a Victron one, so you can get some stats on your phone through Bluetooth. So we're just seeing what the solar cells are putting out, and it may even have some historical information, which would be pretty cool. The great thing about the Balmer battery monitor is you're getting the health of the batteries and the net in and out. It's telling you that, you know, at the moment we've got 2 amps coming in above and beyond what we're using, whereas the app for the Victron is going to tell us exactly what we're bringing in. What's the verdict, Leon?
It's doing another firmware update.
Oh, firmware. Oh, that's cool too. So, yeah,
So,
when your charge controller needs a firmware update, you know it's a bit flash.
yeah, it's a good unit.
Nice.
So, yeah, you got sidetracked halfway through wiring things.
I know.
New toys.
That's way too much fun. The Red Arc units, as well as being a 12 to 24 sort of transformer, is also a solar controller, so we can have a single 12 volt cell going into the Red Arc unit, which gives us more redundancy again, which is nice, which is that one, yeah.
So you got wattage bouncing around a little bit as the clouds come over, but there you go. So you got your voltage and current coming in, battery voltage. So it's actually interesting seeing the MPPT work, because you've got 4 amp at the higher voltage coming from the panels, 5.4 coming out on the battery side, so you can actually directly see the difference. Nice. That's pretty good.
And it's in a bulk charge at the moment because we're not full. Yeah.
So,
right.
Look at that. Today, yesterday, 2 days ago. So actually pulled a lot of power in a couple of days ago, 1.5 kilowatt hour.
That was the Friday. That was the day I was out here working. That was a hot day. And then just this rubbish. This is all during the storm.
Oh, yeah. So we don't have the...
Interesting, that's cool. My next job was to start cutting some holes in the dash for the various gauges, switches, alarms, etc. This hole on the far right is going to be for the alarm if there's no cooling water flowing through the heat exchanger. Then after that I've got my oil pressure sender, my coolant temperature sender, as well as the switch for the SAV winch, anchor winch I'm going to be installing a little bit later on in a separate video. Okay, Leon is going to get his ammeter, his clamp-on ammeter, onto the solenoid for the starter motor, and we're just going to quickly double check how much current it draws so we can get our wiring appropriately sized and fused. So the result of our test showed it was drawing 50 amps through the solenoid, so quite a chunk. I had bought, I don't know if it's here, whether it's down there somewhere.
it's sitting on the engine now.
Yeah, a 30 amp relay to drive it, fused relay. So obviously not big enough. Might actually use a starter solenoid from an outboard to then drive the starter solenoid for the starter here, cascade them a bit, we'll see. Alright, what we're going to do now is get some power from the 24 volt starting bank. We're going to run that forward to a relay or a solenoid, a small solenoid, which will then be activated by current from the start button in the wheelhouse, which will then activate the other solenoid that'll activate the starter. Simple. Pete's here too now. He's been wiring up a starter button in the wheelhouse, and Leon is now just measuring the length of the ground cable that's going to go to the starter motor, so we can cut that to length and have it out of the way, and then at least we'll be able to test our starter solenoid circuit, even though we're not testing the full starter motor circuit. Got the wire cutters.
Yeah, there we go.
They're probably just going to squash it. Yeah. Although it might make it easier for the next little cut if you...
It's
Pretty through, yeah.
Yeah, the side pins.
Got it. Lovely jubbly.
Cool.
Nice.
Alright.
Knife.
Yeah, we're good. Ready to go fishing?
Yeah, that's it. Let's go. Start her up.
Time for a beer.
If we just let the mooring go, we can just float somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
What socket size do you need?
Maybe at least a 17.
Yeah, it's probably imperial, isn't it?
It's probably 3/4.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not 17.
3/4 of 25mm. 3/4
Look at that.
meters. So, house is on and there's no smoke?
That's good.
Because you can't put the smoke back in.
No.
Aha!
No.
Shit, I know what I'm doing.
We have
We have a starter solenoid to start.
Come on,
We have
Stu.
click.
Let's just put power to the starter. Go
Yeah.
on. Can't see that piece of wood fly around.
Yeah, go. No, I'll put at least one tack weld in first, then we'll start it. So, starter solenoid's working well. This one's going to be our shut-off solenoid. Well, thanks for watching. Got a fair bit done this week beyond this video, but I'm actually away for a week for my dad's 80th, so I'll edit that footage up while I'm away and upload that so that we've got a video while I'm away. When I get back, we'll be pushing on probably with the exhaust. The exhaust is the furthest back in the engine bay, so if I start doing cooling water, for example, it's going to make it hard to get in there and do the exhaust. I know I'm going to have to test fit it, pull it out, in, out many times. So I'm better off putting that in first and then building the cooling behind it, you know, so it's not in the way. All right, well, take care and I'll catch you then. See ya.
Like then Ed, you pretend to be doing something.
Yeah. The sulphur-crested cockatoos have decided it's time to start stripping apart this dead fern tree in the garden. Fern tree died during one of the really hot, dry spells we had, unfortunately. But they're taking it turns at pecking at it. I also built Daffy some steps to get up into the hutch. You may have noticed in the previous time we watched her get up, there was a ramp. And she goes to the right to the top of the ramp and does a really big jump up. And she really struggles with her leg to do that.
El Pussycato is gone. What do you think of your new stairs? Is it easier? Bit at a time? Better than the ramp? Oh, look at that, much better. Much better.
Good night.